Sup, and welcome to Sup and welcome to slapping together selected sections of Singleton from Synchronized Seasoning. I'm your host, Pete. So Singleton is the 5th track on Synchronized Seasoning, the Pete Peterson album. It's a song based around a very simple melody that I wrote a long time ago over a 2-chord progression, and I think the only reason I made it was to use as background music for a video. Eventually decided to turn it into a song. What is the meaning of happiness? But anyway, that doesn't really matter. So I want this song to kind of sound like Blink-182, but progressive. You know, progressive. A little bit of ska. So is this song going to be interesting? I don't know. So yeah, let's write this song. Let's write parts of this song.
Part 1. The intro.
Alright, I'm going to show you something that really grinds my gears. First of all, I'm sick. Second of all, trying to program some drums and get the timing right on this riff. So let's take a listen here. It's a little ambiguous, the timing, and you know, I'm too lazy to actually figure out what it really is analytically. So what I do is to make sure that I didn't get that timing in that way by random chance, I re-record it multiple times and make sure after I program the drums, so I'll solo the guitar and only record the guitar to the click track. Make sure I do the timing identically multiple times, because if you do that, then you know that, okay, that's the right timing. So what I did is I just re-recorded it, and we'll take a look and see if we got the timing the same. And no, we're off by 1 beat.
Fucked up the time. I got no timing.
So I figured out that part, not by recording it, actually, but by continuously playing it. So it was good, yeah. That part's good. It's done anyway. I'm not gonna say that it's good.
Part 2. A chord in the chorusy type thing.
Alright, so the next part that I was going to work on is the chorus type thing, which I don't know if you could really call it a chorus, but it seems like a chorus because it, you know, separates 2 verses. So it was based around this idea that came about just jamming on the guitar. Sounds something like... It has that really dissonant chord right there. Kind of picked that just randomly because, I don't know, the fingers sort of fell there. But the idea was that was going to be kind of a dissonant part with like a scream or something weird and shocking happening there. I think this is a major 7 chord with a flat 5, which I don't know what the name for that is. But it doesn't really matter.
So since the lyrics of this song are going to deal with relationship type issues or matters of the heart, if you will, I was wondering if I could encode this information into the music somehow after looking at your typical ECG or heartbeat waveform, which is like the small bump and then the big bump and then the small bump. Wondering if we could take advantage of Fourier's theorem, which states that any periodic waveform can be decomposed into a bunch of simple harmonics or sine waves added together. So can we take this heartbeat waveform and turn it into a chord, was the question. Can we pick out a couple sine waves that are added together to make this waveform, look at the frequency ratios, and then can we transfer these onto the guitar somehow? Didn't really know, seemed like an okay idea. Let's try it. So to do this, we're going to jump into what's called a Jupyter Notebook, which allows us to run Python code in the browser. And we're going to do some analysis on some real ECG data and see if we can make this into a chord. The heartbeat chord.
Alright, so I've already put this notebook together using NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, SciPy. These awesome Python packages that are all open source. The source data I got from this guy Paul Vangent. So he's got a repository up on GitHub called Heart Rate Analysis with Python. I found this. So this is a package for doing heart rate analysis. It just happens to have some CSV data files in the main repository. So I just downloaded those directly, loaded them into a Pandas data frame, and we just have this raw signal coming from the heartbeat. Looks like this. Quite a few heartbeats here. If you were to zoom in, you'd see that typical, a small pulse, a larger amplitude, and then a medium-sized amplitude or something afterwards. I don't know all the names for that. I'm not a medical person, but yeah, we have some real heartbeat data. So the first thing I tried was to analyze this signal using the Welch method for estimating a spectrum, as it's called, the spectrum of waves that make up this signal. And if you plot that, you get this. So this x-axis will be your frequency normalized, and this will be the amplitude. It looks like we can pull out 3 harmonics from it. I should actually run these as we go. Let's run these cells, and then see, we don't have a whole lot of resolution in terms of separating the frequencies, which is a little bit of an issue because, the distance between this and this, I mean, if you had, say, 3 frequencies, you have one, and then you have that one doubled, that's an octave. Just imagine that you have your entire octave in this space here. If you don't have very much resolution, it's going to be difficult to have any sort of precision with respect to what note that is. And at the end of the day, this doesn't need to be perfect. It can be a hand-wavy thing. This is not science. This is making stupid music, so doesn't matter. So this Welch method seems to not give the resolution that we want. So I didn't like this method. Decided not to go with it. Went and used an FFT or fast Fourier transform based method. So looking at the real component of the absolute value of the FFT, we see this spectrum, similar frequencies, I suppose. You see something around 0.01, 0.02, 0.03. So 0.01, 0.02, 0.03. So it's going to give us pretty similar results, but with a bit more resolution on where those peaks are. Obviously, this is noisy, so you could never really say that this is a really accurate spectrum. But as I said, this is music, not science, so we can be wrong about this, and it doesn't really matter because the chord's probably going to sound like crap anyway. So we're going to make a 4-note chord out of this. We'll take the 4 largest peaks out of this segment of the spectrum, and we'll normalize the frequencies of these by the top value, or the fundamental, which looks like it's somewhere around 0.01. And then we'll have these frequency ratios to build our chord. So if we look at the frequencies we have, so we have 1, of course, that's the fundamental. We have 1 over here that's a little bit greater than 2, so 2 is the octave here. And then we have 1 that is 3, so if you look at the ratio 3 over 2, that's a perfect fifth. Then we have another that is slightly lower than 3. So we're going to have something slightly lower than a fifth, something slightly higher than a fifth, and then we're going to have something slightly higher than the octave. So we can take the signal that we created. We created this by looping through all the different frequencies and just creating a sine wave at that frequency. I've scaled it by concert A, 440 hertz. So we can play this. And it sort of sounds like when you're dialing on an old phone. Dissonant doesn't particularly sound good. So next we want to take these frequency ratios and figure out how many semitones each of them represents. So to figure out the number of semitones, you have this frequency ratio. This relationship is equal to 2 to the n over 12 power. This is an equal temperament type tuning. We can test this out and see how many semitones is a 1.5 frequency ratio. So that should be a perfect fifth. So 7.01 or 7.02 semitones. So right there you can see that a guitar, if you play a note in 7 semitones above, that is your, root and fifth, but it technically won't conform to a perfect fifth in just intonation. But most people, myself included, I don't think can even notice the difference. All right, so let's apply this function we wrote to get the semitone ratios between these frequencies, and then we'll just modulo them by 12 to put them all in the same octave. Modulo meaning we'll divide them by 12 and then only look at the remainder. So let's look at these frequency ratios. We have the root. We then have something a little bit higher than a fifth. So that's a quarter of a semitone. Something a little bit lower than a minor second. So 1 semitone up from the root. Gonna have to probably play that as a slightly bent up octave. And then we have, lastly, half a semitone below the fifth. So if I had a microtonal guitar, I could potentially play that without bends. So it looks like we'll do a root. We'll do then the octave bent up to get something lower than the minor second, something between the flat fifth and the fifth. So we'll take the flat 5 and bend it up half a semitone or so. Like this is even going to be able to be done accurately. And then something higher than a fifth. So bend up a fifth, a quarter of a semitone. All right, so let's get to the guitar and see if we can do this. All right, so let's put the silly heartbeat chord into practice on the guitar. So if we remember correctly, this is the riff that we're putting it into. That's the chord we need to replace with the heartbeat chord. So it's going to have the root over here on the D, which is actually, I'm tuned a half step down, so keep that in mind. And then we have something that's going to be slightly lower than a minor second, so an octave bent up. So we can go. That's beautiful. Sorry about the noisy guitar. But we don't want to go a full semitone up from the octave. Hear that beating? We don't want to go to that. The beating there is a bit higher frequency. Yeah, that's some beautiful music right there. Alright, so then we need something that's slightly between a flat fifth and a fifth. So let's take the flat 5, bend it up a little bit. So actually we got 2 notes that are bent up. Ooh, that sounds just like a heartbeat, doesn't it? If your heart is black and evil and of the devil. And then we have one more note. We need a fifth bent up a tiny, tiny bit. So let's take the octave of the fifth. So basically we're just bending all 3 of these up. Does this sound like our... Yeah, a little bit. leave you with this beautiful chord. See ya.